So the next question is from Sarvanu Kumar. He's from McDonald's Toastmasters Club. Of all the speeches you have delivered, which one is your favorite?
Well, that's easy. It was definitely Ouch, my championship speech, because it was the most pressure I had in my life, the most coaching I had in my life. But let me back up a step and say one of the key ingredients to how that went was my coach, Mark Brown, the 1995 world champion. And so for everybody watching, this is the coveted trophy that I got from Toastmasters. But here's what Mark helped me with, which helped make the delivery of that speech one of the most important. At times, I do know me very well, and I have a good heart, and I always have good intention. But there would be times that Mark would catch me, and I would start lusting after the trophy. Ooh, I would turn into that little creature from Lord of the Rings, the one that lusted the ring. Precious. And I would lust after the trophy. I wanted to win. And when that took over, my coach, Mark Brown, would reel me back in, but he did it with this question. And this question, I still to this day take to the stage with me. And it's powerful. So I hope everybody hears this and understands this to the depth of its importance. And he said, Darren, on Saturday morning, you have the privilege of 2,000 lives for 7 minutes. What will you do with that? And what that does is forces us to go more deep into ourselves and to our intention, because the audience can sense our intention. So it took my mind off the trophy and to the audience. And what I learned from Mark is he said the only way to get to the trophy is through the hearts of the audience. There's no direct path, because you can be word spot on. Exactly word for word, use the stage perfectly, have a well-crafted, well-written speech. But if we don't feel that connection, that you intentionally care about us and our outcome, the audience can sense it. So even though in the judges form, maybe you hit an almost perfect score, but there's just something missing, and they can help, the audience can sense that. They're so savvy, especially when you're up against some of the best in the world. Like for me, one of the things that helped me was watching Ed Tate's speech, who won in 2000. But I wasn't watching it once. It's such a funny story and such a well-crafted and a very different structure from any other speech in the Toastmasters contest, because it was all just one story beginning to end. But when I saw it the third, the fourth, the fifth time, I started noticing he made some little stumbles, some little verbal mistakes. And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. He won and he wasn't perfect. Wow, that took so much pressure off. He wasn't perfect, but his connection with us was magical. So I created the phrase, don't be perfect, be present. And so because of that example from Ed Tate, it took some pressure off. And the audience wants you perfectly connected with them, not perfect. And I think that's one of the mistakes I see. So by far, one of my favorite speeches was my world championship, because it changed who I was. And also, my dad has always loved me and has always been there for me and always played catch with me. They say that a lot of people, they want to please their dad, or there's that person in their life that they need that edification from. They need that, what's the word I'm looking for? That acknowledgement, that, guys, help me out here. You have that person in your life that you need to appreciate or needs to acknowledge you. I'm missing the word, but anyway.
Gratitude.
What's that?
Gratitude.
Not gratitude, but it's that person that their approval, that we deep down inside, we seek their approval. And that was my brother, not my dad. My dad, I knew I had his approval, but my brother was the skeptical one, was the one who told me I was crazy. I talk about him in the speech, that he was the only one that laughed when I said I wanted to be a comedian. So to hear my brother on the phone, because he wasn't there, on the phone after, to be shocked that I won. Like, be shocked. Like, that's why that speech was important. And then it gave me the privilege of 44 international cities, pretty much every state in the United States, to influence people and tell my story, because I know a lot of Toastmasters had a background like me in a different way with a different challenge. But one of the things Toastmasters resonates with us is because we have that deep down internal lack of belief in ourselves. That's why we gravitate to self-development. So that's why I love showing and telling my Stitches story, because people think, oh, it's easy for him. You know, he's a great speaker. No, that's not how I started. So by far, that was my favorite speech. My next favorite speech is my next one. Whatever that is, because it's another opportunity to influence. I never take it for granted anymore. I had times where I had in the past because my ego was getting in my way.
Thank you so much, Darren. I definitely enjoyed your winning speech. So the next question is from Jayashree. She's from TCS Maitri Toastmasters Club. So the question is, what makes a good speaker into a world champion? Can passion alone turn someone into a world champion?
No, not in my opinion. No, I don't claim to know everything. I'm just giving my answer from my experience. Every world champion's journey is different. But from my opinion, the one thing it takes is the passion is definitely a key, but a passion for the audience's outcome, not a passion for their own ego on stage. Number two, a willingness to be coachable. In 2001, before I met my coach, Mark Brown, I was never coached before. I always thought I was good enough. And even when I started working with Mark, I thought, well, you know, I'm so good. If he just gives me a couple of tweaks, that's all I need. And if you've ever heard that story before, when I showed him my first version of Ouch, he looked down and
we have work to do.
Oh, Darren, we have some work to do. What? But I did. And so the thing I learned is if you're not coachable, there is no cure. If you're not coachable, there is no cure. I thought I needed a few tweaks. Thank goodness Mark was committed to me and had a big heart and gently showed me how much I really needed to learn. And then you need the right coach. Not a coach. There's a lot of unqualified coaches giving us feedback. When I was working on Ouch, the 22 times that I gave it at Toastmaster clubs before that, in my fall, they all said, you were down too long, I was uncomfortable, you should get up sooner. I was down too long, you're uncomfortable, you should get up sooner. You should get up sooner, you should get up sooner, you should get up sooner. It's what I heard everywhere. When I went to my coach, Mark Brown, and said, here's what they're saying, Mark said the exact opposite. He said, stay down longer. He said, Darren, our job is not to make the audience comfortable. It's to make them uncomfortable so they will change. Now, I had to find the coach that I would be open and coachable to. And it took Mark to get me there. I wasn't quite there yet. But you need the coach that you trust and that you're willing to stretch yourself for. Because I think, and this may sound harsh, but your question is about the highest level. So I'm going to be direct about this. I think there's two kinds of presenters. Number one, there's the presenters who see the value of a qualified coach. And I didn't before 2001. It wasn't until after I had the realization of working with Mark, the difference he was making. And then number two, the other kind of presenters are the people who will never, ever reach their full potential. You can't reach your full potential without a coach. Someone who's willing to hold up a mirror and show you where, think of it as like Swiss cheese. We all have different holes and you can get competent in so many things, but where are your holes? And that's what a coach does, is unleashes the amazing speaker that's inside all of us. but without the right coach that you trust, you're not going to be open. And if it's not a qualified coach who can know what to look for and the content to pull out of you. I mean, in my speech, you might recall that I had a little, I told my Subway sandwich shop joke. Well, it was not in the original speech when I gave it to Mark. In fact, we were struggling, we were challenging working on the content, and Mark was so good at that. And he pulled it out of me, and he's like, Darren, I need, this speech is about you failing your way to the top. We need another big failure in your life. I'm like, failure. And I'm like, And I said, well, my early days of stand-up comedy, I used to tell this little joke about Subway. And he says, go ahead, try it out. And so I told him that joke, and he's like, that's perfect. But I would have never looked for it because I didn't know what in me to look for. Does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely answers my question.
By the way, you had that amazing smile. Like you light it up. Like, I need some sunglasses.